Let everyone know who you are, what you do, and I guess kind of a quick introduction to Groover.
Yeah, of course. So I'm Dorian, one of the co-founders of Groover. I started the company end of 2017. Actually, we didn't start the company at that point. We were just a few friends with a bit of experience of the music industry, but very young. And we wanted to help independent musicians. So I had started a music blog on my side, which is called like Indiflagration, which is a shitty name, but it's it's in French, so you can look it up. But it's gonna be a tough time. And so I was receiving so many submissions from artists through my emails. Even though it wasn't a big blog, like the content was nice, but we didn't have like a big audience. It was really like a passion project on my side. And my co-founders, Romain, had already released an EP, released music, and struggled a lot to get it heard and get in touch with people who could actually help him get his music out there.
Yeah.
And at the same time, so we wanted to help independent musicians, and we started this like entrepreneurship program at UC Berkeley in California, and we had an idea of what we wanted to do, which was very different, a bit different from what we're doing right now. And we started by talking to around 200 musicians and music professionals, spending 30 minutes to 1 hour with them. It lasted a month. And we asked very open questions about what they were doing, what they liked the most, what was their main issues. And what we realized is that at first, what we wanted to do was work on a full service kind of marketplace for musicians to help them find someone for their music video, find someone for their artwork, or someone to take photos of them, help them maybe with distribution or record label, like very, very large scale. And when we talk with musicians, what we realize is that most of them, they are very autonomous on all the production, the creative part. They find friends, they can do it by themselves, they can produce the music. And the biggest issue that we found was about, once I release my music, how do I get more than my mom and my dog listening to my music? It was like ending 20 to 30 minutes monologues about only this. And we were like, we can't focus on something else than this. Like, we need to focus on just this. And that's how we actually started. It was a Google form in a WordPress website with a PayPal button and something I would have never paid on, with a few websites on there that were mainly some blogs that I knew and really liked, and I had like to. And people were paying. On the other side, we were saying Google Forms to the blogs so they could answer, and they were answering, and the artists were happy, and we were like, okay, this is very scrappy, but we have something. At first, like people, like we were counting our revenue in terms of the number of Pokeballs. You know that, or like we were able to buy with that because we were always
Poke bowls, like the rice and fish and stuff. Yeah.
Exactly, and we were always going to the same place in Berkeley, and we were like, how many of those can we pay with what we're getting?
Yeah.
So it was really about this at first. And so it started like this, and we realized that it was really bringing value. So when we came back to Paris after 5 months, it was early 2018, we decided we had finished our studies, and we really decided to go 100% on that project with my co-founders, Raphael and Romain. We were 3 at first. And the idea was really to develop on that idea. That is very close and exactly the same model of what Summit Hub does. But the idea and what we realized when we were talking to musicians is that, especially musicians in France and in Europe, either they didn't know about Summit Hub or they had used it and they were a bit disappointed because it's not very adapted for local music, like in terms of for French musicians and French independent musicians. We didn't feel that the people on there were were going to be interested in their music. So we focused a lot on building a community in France of music creators and pros in order to service the French market first. Now it's like full international, but we still kept that kind of market by market strategy, building communities of creators in specific areas.
I found that really cool when I was submitting my music on Groover, that it's not like, so there's a whole bunch of places who are only accepting, for example, French artists, but there's also some Brazilian curators who are only accepting Brazilian artists. And so there's some curators on there who are localized, which is kind of cool, because it means that those artists that are pitching to those people are probably going to have a way better chance of getting in. So you kind of get like a local advantage, which is a cool idea. And it's not like most people don't have that localization feature on, I noticed, but it's cool, right? Because obviously growing your local market can matter a lot, depending on what you do.
Entirely, and it was like from the beginning our idea, because we like, there's so much music, but there's a lot of music that is that has this like localized aspect, and they can work on specific territories, especially related to language. Like a song in Italian is probably going to work better on the Italian market, and so we had this idea from the start of building these kind of communities. And we did that in a very human way, because we work with ambassadors and they work with us. Some of them have become like full members of the team, especially our Brazilian ambassador is now like a full member of the team. And he's coaching the other ambassadors, actually. He's like an amazing guy, Thiago. And he built like the whole presence of Groover in Brazil by himself, like almost, like with the tools that we have. And we had this, I didn't know anything about Brazil. And he actually reached out at some point saying, this could work in Brazil. And I was like, I don't know, you can, maybe you can try to reach out to some there and we can talk in a month or so. And like in 24 hours, he got like 10 media outlets that were amazing. It was like, okay, let's work together. Let's see what it is. And if you go on Instagram, on our like groover.br account, like at groover.br, it's huge. It's like,
really?
This is insane. Like, people love Groover in Brazil. I don't understand a thing that is written on this, but it's crazy.
There's a few other things that made Groover stand out to me compared to like Submit Hub. So one is that localization feature, but also the way you can filter people by like their industry experience is really cool. Because, and I probably, if I was smart, I would have pulled this up ahead of time so I could just look at it. But like when you pick a campaign, there's some category. It's not just like choose like a blog or a Spotify playlist. There's some way to select like if the person's in, I think like if they're in like production or if they're in like PR or something. Could you kind of go over some of that?
Yeah, of course. It actually came in a very organic way, because at first we were focusing a lot on blogs, because I had like a music blog and we knew that need, and especially 2017, 2018 it was still bigger. Like, blogs are not as big as they were at the time. They were already on the low in a way, like before, after like the rush around blogs and music blogs, but it was still very relevant, and artists were requesting a lot about that. And Spotify playlists at the time, especially in France, because we're usually late in France compared to the US. Like, Spotify playlists is what it has become a thing later than in the US, for instance. And so we were focusing a lot on blogs at first. And when we were reaching out to record labels, first we thought they would be more interested in like using it as a promotion tool. And a lot of them actually told us, why can't we also receive tracks and submissions? Lots of them were very interested. So we started more and more to include different types of people who could bring value to the artist, but were of a different, had a different role and could bring a different value to artists. So, and basically the way it's summed up now, it's three big categories. The first one would be the ones who can bring visibility to artists. So it will be blogs, radios, journalists, Spotify playlist creators, YouTube channels. and we including more and more, and we will have a dedicated category dedicated to social media influencers, which is not limited to TikTok. It can be TikTok, Instagram, Twitch, but we have some of those now. They are more under like the media outlets tab, but it's more relevant to create a whole category around that, and we want to include those, so it will be a new category soon. This is the first one. The second one would be people you can reach out to because you want to build your team. You want to find your entourage and people to work with. So it would be record labels, publishers, bookers, managers. And the third category is people who can bring more detailed advice about your production or your project. So it would be sound engineers, managers who are also mentors or coaches, training experts. It's more about like when you have a demo, for instance, or you really want some detailed feedback about your music and you want to focus on those people who are going to spend a bit more time to give you that advice, those advice. So it's really about that, and these three categories of people are the main ones, and you can also focus on the specific subcategories here. So if you really want to find a record label, you can really focus on record label. You can also focus on radios if you want to.
I found the option in there, so I'm going to block your face for a moment just so I can show people. But when you're searching through Groover, this is the three categories we was talking about. So like in the promotion categories, all this stuff, and the partnership, so like if you wanted to just select reaching out to labels or managers or sync supervisors or whatever, or you're looking for like coaching, like mentor sound experts, like you can hit them up. If you don't necessarily care about, getting on blogs and Spotify playlists at this time, which is kind of a cool differentiating factor, because I feel like if you guys were just the same as Submit Hub, it would be kind of like, what's the point of using either you or Submit Hub, and which is obviously not good for business reasons, right? You don't want to be competing with the big, like, well-known platform that's out there.
Yeah, entirely. And to be fair, like it's interesting because we really had from the start this wish to be able to bring people that were not going to use Summit Hub or what didn't know about it. Of course, some of Summit Hub creators signed up to Groover, so you will have some of those who are on both platforms, but we never reached out to them. It was a big thing because I think it's maybe one of the reasons why Jason, I think, respects us a bit compared to the other platforms. I don't know I don't want to talk for him. Like, he's probably, he can express like what he thinks about us, of course. But I think he respects us more than some other platforms because we had a very different approach and we tried to bring people that were not already using Summit Hub or not using the platform. And it was this idea of really bringing the people that can help the artists. And it's not always easy because for the message, it can be different because when you're releasing a track and you trying to get visibility, it's not the same at all when there's the same time as when you want to reach out to record labels and you want to you can build like some partners around you if you want to get some feedback. It's like three very different values. And some artists want to get it all. Some want to focus on something very specific on the platform. And it was what we wanted here, like to help them target really people that could be interesting for them. And we saw that, like, for instance, in Brazil or in Italy, people really reaching out locally and getting some success. Like we had like recently we have a very cool Quebec-based record label called Rosemary Records. They sign mostly French-speaking artists, and they actually discovered a Quebec-based, like, Canadian artists on the platform that they decided to sign. And they don't sign a lot of artists every year. It's like 2 or 3 artists. And I was like, whoa, this is like entirely local, entirely in a different place. And it's so cool to see that happening. And it's definitely one of the things we want to promote.
For sure. I guess on that note, like, there's a lot of local aspects to Groover. How many curators, when I say curators, how many different types of entities accepting submissions are there on Groover right now?
So we talk about creators and professionals. So we didn't find like one single word because at first we were using like music influencers and people didn't understand, and we were not very at ease with the word because it's different, and people were like confounding it with like Instagram influencers and stuff like that. So we use like music curators and professionals, and we have. So right now, like if you go on the website, I think it's around 1,700 creators who are actually active right now. But it's on a pool that's much larger. So we have, because some of them go on holiday, especially in August or December.
Yeah.
We have some that we decide to deactivate because we see that they don't bring enough value to the artist, or they're not like respecting the guidelines and stuff like that. And we have like new people signing up every day. So it's around like a population of 1,700 creators and professionals, but it can vary a lot. And if you come at some point and you come the following week, a lot of them would have changed, the ones you can see on the platform.
Yeah. So that's a lot. I mean, I have no idea how it compares to all the other. I mean, we talked a little bit about SubmitHub. There's also Playlist Push, which is another different value proposition, and then there's also Muso Soup, completely different thing as well. And there's Label Radar. I don't even know if that's still a thing.
I don't know either, but I think it's more about like managing your demo submission. Label Radar. I've never used Label Radar, but I know a bit more about like Playlist Push and Muso Soup. I actually met the guys from Playlist Push at South by this year.
Oh, really? Nice.
Fun. Yeah, they did a meetup there, and we met, and it was really nice. Like it was. Because we actually arrived and was like, so it was fun because we arrived and it was like, hey, we're from Groover, and he arrived and was like, no, don't come in, and stuff like that. It actually ended. It was very fun. Like they're really nice guys. Actually, what we're saying, it's like totally a different way of working because you pay more like a flat fee, and then they're able to push your music to big place creators and everything. But it's a bit less transparent, but you can also have some very big value from the different place creators they focus on, and also TikTok in different places, if I remember correctly. For Muso Soup, I'm a bit more bittersweet.
Well, what does that mean?
It doesn't mean, probably doesn't mean anything. Because I think I understand what they want to do, and I think they want to do it for the good reasons. But we really have like a strong principle, and I think that Jason at Summit Hub has the same about not paying creators for placement, not do pay for play and pay for placement, and not pay the content creation, but pay the music discovery time, and leave them the entire freedom and liberty to decide to share or not a track, and not being incentivized to share it because they're going to be paid.
Yeah, it's a weird platform on Muso Soup. Like, they do have a bunch of mechanisms in place to control a little bit, like how much the pay per play is. But at the end of the day, it really is like you're literally paying for placement. I mean, now there's always a free alternative. So if you don't pay for that, they have to share some kind of free thing. However, what a lot of the curators on there have been doing is, you'll just get blind pitches to your song, like, oh, I'll share this to this place for $5 or £5 or £10. But the thing is, they feel like the messages read like they've never seen your song before. Like I submitted an album, for example, on Muso Soup just to kind of get some blog write-ups, and all the things I was getting from these curators or whatever were saying things along the lines like, oh, I really liked your song. I'd like to share it to my Spotify playlist. And so it's like, okay, well, they didn't even see it's an album, right? Because they said song, and then they're going to share the whole thing to their Spotify playlist. Like, obviously, this person didn't read it. And I think 50% of all the things I got offered were this stuff like that. Were obvious, just people see a submission and they just pitch to it and try to ask for £10 from each one. But there still are some good platforms on there, and the prices are reasonable. Like, we want £5 to get a blog write-up, and this pretty good quality blog and stuff.
And it's not about, like, I don't think at all that it is I don't know, something that's bad in terms of money or investment for the artist. It's more like the principle that I think is dangerous, because it puts the bloggers or the creators in the positions of trying to become content creators and proposing to everybody as someone would write a blog post for a company, like I think like a content writer who doesn't even want his name to be associated to the article, which is like, it's more about and I think it's dangerous because we've had a few outlets that are using Musicip, and they were using Groover as well, and they started to try to do the same with the artists on the platform, like reaching out to them through emails and asking them to pay more to actually have the article, and we totally opposed to that, so we banned them, and they didn't understand, and it was more like, but we get paid for all our articles, and there are places in the world, like especially, I feel that in Australia and in the UK, they're very used to that, like to being paid for the article they write and they produce. Not all of them, but some of the outlets there. And it was like, I feel that it's encouraging that. And I feel that it's troubling the editorial line. And so, sorry, it's such like an interesting issue that the reason is, I think artists who are using platforms like this, when they're getting in touch with music curators, bloggers, radios, labels, what they want is the visibility, but they also want the recognition. Like, they want the recognition of, this person has listened to my music, they like it, and they want to share it. And they don't share everybody. Right. It's like, and this is a very important thing. I was in the important meeting in France with all the press magazines that are still alive in France, like the written paper there. There are not a lot. They were all there. With also, there were a lot of very famous PR agents and independent record labels. They invited me. I was like, I'm gonna get killed by all the PR agents there. I don't know. So I was like there in the meeting room. It was very interesting because the debate was about that, about what are we useful? Like, what is Rolling Stone France useful? Like, what, like the Les Inrocks is one of the biggest ones here. Les Inrocks. Like Tsugi is a big one here. It's like, what is it used? Because like, people don't read us anymore. We don't have subscriptions, so why should we be kept alive? And the reason that came out was, artists really value, and people really value the fact of artists being featured by you guys, because the brands are important. And it's really about that. And like, a lot of artists tell us about how it's important to get brand recognition. And actually, when you do like a editorial playlist pitch for Spotify, for instance, and you do it as a distributor, saying that you've been featured in this and this and this big magazine, is actually a way to strengthen your pitch. Same when you want to be featured on a festival, when you want to reach out to a festival, having been approved by this magazine can help. So it's more like about the legitimacy and the recognition you can get. And when the media outlet can get paid for featuring, they will be incentivized to accept everything, to be paid in return. And so what with their editorial and what they share media and more.
Right. Yeah. No. That's a fantastic point. And I have heard from various people who have done big PR campaigns that there are actually a number of pretty popular, established, trustworthy blogs that just straight up accept bribes to get coverage. like they'll be like, oh yeah, we're in an article for you. We love the song. That'll be $1,000 or whatever. Thank you. And so, but you're right. Because that's kind of, as much as it sucks to say, like, that's kind of a different playing field than when it's like, if every single blog online or every single curator has a financial incentive to do it, then it's like nothing matters anymore. And so I much prefer the pay for pitch, no guarantee model. Like, when people ask me what and when people ask me what, they're looking for a Spotify playlisting service, I tell them, don't use any service that promises you anything. Because if they're promising you anything, like, let's say they are actually doing things the right way, and they're actually pitching your things to curators behind the scenes, they're just doing it for you. Well, then if they can't get you the thing they promised with good playlists, their option at that point is either refund you the rest of your money or throw you on the worst playlists imaginable just to hit the goal line, right? And so, Groover, Submit Hub, Playlist Push, all you guys do, you do the pay for consideration. which I think is the way you want to do it. And I've talked to the Muso Soup guy. I haven't done a video with him, and his intentions are like perfect. Like he's
exactly. That's why I respect totally his approach.
Yeah, like he's a cool guy. He genuinely wants to have things be legit. And he's very active in his community, and he polices his curators. You know, when they do something sketchy, he'll ban them and then make an example of them to all the other curators in his Facebook group. And so he's doing it for the right reasons. But it's a sketchy thing. A lot of this kind of submitting to people. It's a weird kind of industry that's popped up in the past. Like I don't know when. So you guys started in 2017. I don't know when the other guys started.
Yeah, it was like we started the company officially beginning of 2018, and the website was live October 2018. So it's like
you're quite new.
I think we just arrived a bit earlier, probably. And there was like at that point there was like only Summit Hub and Placebush who were like already there, and they improved everything over time, of course.
Yeah.
And I think the reason, I think his intentions are really good, the guy from Music. So I think the reason why I feel that it's not the perfect solution is that I think he's trying to please everybody.
Yeah.
So he's trying to please the artist and please the media outlets and please everybody at the same time and try to say yes to every request in a way.
Yeah.
So he's trying to really work on that connection, on the connection and on both. While it's interesting because on Jason's side for Summit Hub, I think he started his company by really wanting to serve the creators because he was himself like a blogger. I think he says it himself that he wanted to serve the creators, the bloggers, how to help them manage their submissions. And then he realized the impact he had on artists, and it became also a priority and also maybe even a focus for him. While on our side, what's been central from the start and maybe differentiate us, maybe not in a very noticeable way, is the fact that from the start, our goal has always been to help artists. For us creators, and I'm a blogger myself, but bloggers and radios, and don't get offended if some are looking, but you're like a means to an end. The goal is to help artists get their music out there, get their music heard, get more audience, and bring good service to the creators is a way for artists to get a good service. So even our creators team that we built out, and very recently actually, is focused on what are the key metrics that they're measuring is the artist satisfaction from the feedback from the creators. So it's really something that's central on our side is we want to empower and help artists get their music heard. It's here, and we haven't read it on the wall in the offices, but close. It's in our minds all the time.
Yeah, you guys are actually kind of a big company, right? I found it was kind of like a LinkedIn website, but like a French version of LinkedIn. I forget what it was called, but it was like wearesomething.com. We are.
Yeah.
It was some like on your website. I found your company bio page, and you have like 30 employees or something, right?
Yeah, it grew a lot.
Like that's kind of like when I talked to Jason, I think they had like 4 people in their whole team, and
I think they are. They are maybe 5 or 6. I don't know, but they're not. I don't think they're a lot more than that. And I think one of the reasons is that Jason is probably a genius, and is.
I think he's like the only developer. He's not even a software developer. He just like picked it up for fun.
He's like an incredible developer, and with a vision of what he wants to do, which is super rare. Like it doesn't exist a lot, and it doesn't exist in most companies.
Yeah.
And he has this vision, this process, this like mindset, and on top of that, he's probably become, because I think he wasn't a developer at first, and he became an amazing developer, and he has the total mastery of what he's doing. And he reminds me of the guy who founded CD Baby. I don't know if you read his book, which is called like Anything You Want.
No, I haven't.
Um, I think it's Derek Sievers. I think it's his name. And he talks about that, the fact that he started to work before PayPal existed on the button to be able to sell his CDs online, and then his friends asking for to access. So he created CD Baby that way. And he was the only developer for numerous years, and he even he coded everything at some point, and at some point he sold the company. But it's kind of the same kind of people who are able to manage everything and be super clever about that. I'm not a developer. I did the first website on WordPress. I know HTML, CSS, but I'm not able, I would have had to spend so much more time on all that to be able to comprehend how to do it. And what happened is that we started by having some interns who helped us develop the website, hiring, and actually to have a very strong tech team, product team, and working on the user experience, to have a cool design, to have something that's smooth and works correctly and everything. You actually normally need a very big tech team, and not just one person. And also we were really strong on one of the differentiator. I don't know if you had that sense when using Groover, is the user experience is very different. We tried to work on a very different kind of design, a different experience, something that's more close to the artist and maybe nicer in a way. That's what we tried to do, actually.
My experience was that there were aspects of it I liked more than some of the other options out there, and there were also aspects of it that I liked less than others out there. And so
that makes a lot of sense.
The Submit Hub comparison is just going to keep coming up. But with Submit Hub, you can look at if they're a playlist curator, you can see their exact playlists listed there. And I think you can still get it on yours.
It's
I don't
something
remember.
We're working on.
So it's not there yet.
We're close to it, but
you can click on their bio, and then you can find their Spotify, and then go and comb through their stuff or their website.
It's less detailed. It's less detailed than on Summit Hub, and Summit Hub has more features.
Yeah.
They've been out there for more time. I think Jason has a very cool understanding of everything related to that. And he's able to ship some new amazing features in a record amount of time, which is crazy, and it's so cool.
Yeah.
But we're not trying to change that. So we're really focusing on the needs of our users and trying to prioritize what will be the next thing that's the most needed now. And I think we even started to have some things that maybe they got inspired a bit of, but of course I cannot even speak about it because we got inspired by so much of what they do that it's not even but we're working on things and trying to find our own priority way more than trying to chase the features, and we have some of the things they have, which is amazing on this platform that we don't have yet, but we plan to have at some point. Some things they have that we don't want to have.
I like the feature you have where you can just say what your budget is, and then you kind of recommend stuff. But you don't have to just take whatever you're giving them. You can say I have this budget, and you'll recommend some stuff after they filter everything, and then they can choose it. But they don't have to choose all of that. And so it's kind of like this feature that kind of puts you in between the playlist push, which curates everything for you based on genre, but you're stuck with what you get. In between Submit Hub, where you get so much information, you're just kind of overwhelmed. So that's kind of what I felt when because I think, and just I guess to disclose it, you gave me some free credits to try out the platform, and so when I use those credits, I think I use that feature among the filters and stuff to try to figure out, who I was going to pitch to and kind of see how things went. And it's cool.
And even the filter section, we're working on the whole rework on the filter section on our side, and the final mock-ups, and I tried to contribute a lot to it because it was so important. Even if you're 30 people, as you were saying, I'm still working, I'm still very hands-on. And I'm super excited about what's coming because it's going to be so much more easy to use. We're working on, there are some cool features like the favorites list that are going to be pushed much more. We have some automated list of curators that are more like playlists, like algorithmic playlists and stuff like that. And we have something that's not visible, that's working, which is our recommendation algorithm. So we have a full data team of 3 people working on it. And we don't put this, but when you fill in your profile and you put some information there, when you do a first campaign, we start putting this into action. And actually the way the creators are ranked is based on that recommendation algorithm.
Cool.
That's why we usually recommend artists to not fill in too many jars on their profile. Because if they do so, it's going to be very random, like the recommendations you get. But if you focus on like maximum 2 or 3 jars, like music jars, you're gonna have some recommendations that are gonna be very relevant most of the time. Especially if music is kind of precise in the way. Because sometimes we have a lot of people asking us like, why is the jar of my music? And sometimes it's actually very complicated. But like most of the time, like you're gonna get some cool recommendations for that. And it's also something that's important is that we try to be very, very present on the chat system and the way people can interact with us when they have an issue. It's been something I've been obsessed by since the beginning. And we try to answer very quickly when we're on. We of course have some downtime, we're sleeping. But still trying to answer like on the weekends and trying to really help the artists. And we more like just like solving the issue, trying to help them target the right ones. When sometimes they have like very random questions about stuff that are not related at all with Groover, but we still try to answer. We have a blog that maybe you saw that with a lot of articles helping the artists and giving them advice. It's called the Groover blog.
I don't even think I did see that.
It's actually like we have a lot of traffic on that. Like we have
how to get more Spotify streams without cheating. That's one of your.
And we've written recently a lot of articles about Reddit subreddits and how you can promote music on Reddit and stuff. So it's not like related directly to what we do on Google. It's more about helping artists.
Right. Some good old content marketing too and SEO as well.
Exactly. Yeah, it works. It actually works really well.
Yeah. I
mean, in Portuguese and stuff.
Yeah, I am on my channel, Ryan from Indie Music Academy, and he gets, I won't say how much, and I also don't remember how much, but he gets like an obscene amount of traffic from his blog. Like I think he gets more from his blog than his YouTube channel, and he writes fantastic blogs. And the Google SEO thing, it matters a lot. So any of you watching on the music artist side, if you start a dope blog, like it can actually move some serious numbers.
Yeah, you have to be consistent and also to find some queries that are not very much tackled in the beginning.
Yeah.
And actually we also had some success with it because there was a lot of content. There was a lot of content in English, but there was not a lot of content in French. So we really like a niche there. But
so you're like dominating the French music marketing blog platform, probably.
I think so right now. Like we're probably one of the leaders in France for sure. In the US, not at all, but we still have a lot of traffic because it's so much bigger. And actually, we have more traffic now from the US than from France on the blog. And if it was about like being consistent on that. I think we have close to between 50K and 100K unique visitors per month on the blog solely. And if we have more on the website, but actually we have so many people who discover Groover through the blog, and we have like so many people telling us that the blog articles have helped them or gave them some interesting insights. So like it pushes us to go through. And just to go back on the 30 people thing. So yeah, we have like an amazing team of between 30 to 35 people. I don't know exactly the number, to be honest.
Yeah, it's like 12 open positions on your website too, which is nuts.
Yeah, we have some open positions. Yeah, and we also have a lot of like ambassadors, as I was saying, that are more like freelancers working a few days per week for us. But when they work great, like we tend to ask them if they can work more for us. So it's the idea, of course, so it's crazy because we're really young. I'm 27. I started this at 23, and I have people working with us who are like much older than me, and still there's such a cool and good energy in that team. Like everybody's here for the good reasons.
Yeah.
And we do a lot of events as well. Like it's a difference we have is we're very present on the music scenes. Like we organize some events, some showcases, and we take part in festivals. And we do, I don't know if you saw that, but we do a lot of free call for applicants for people to play at some showcases we organize or some partner events. So people can apply for free to them, and we then select some artists and some bands to play there, or the partner selects them. And it's actually proven to be like a very successful and establishing us as a real like music brand and not only like just a platform and tool.
Right. Yeah, that's super cool. I didn't even realize that. There's some good questions that popped up that I want to read. And you kind of talked about this one already from Che Jose. He says he used Groover, but the interface needs work. It's a little hard and slow compared to Submit Hub. And you actually mentioned the interface to me when you first told me about the platform. Or not told me about it, but when you invited me onto the platform. And it seems like there's a big focus. That's like one of the company's biggest focuses now is getting like changing the front end, making the filtering better, etc. So is there any, and then I'm bringing up that question because there was another question. Are there any features on Groover people should look out for? So I guess combining those two things, what should people look out for in Groover that makes it unique in terms of features, and what's coming up next that's probably the most exciting thing that you can share?
It's a really strong thing because we have some steps and some stuff on the website who we have like a roadmap of like so many things that we want to improve, and we're getting a lot of feedback from the users and we're using that a lot. We also dynamically doing some user interviews, a lot of them, especially our product team, Erica, Raphael, and Matilda doing a lot of those, try to understand like the behaviors, what they want, and how we can improve that. There are a lot of things that are going to be improved in the way you can send a campaign, the way you manage these things. The filtering system, the new way it's going to be set up is going to be a huge thing, in my opinion. I think it can prove to be more successful than a lot of other stuff we've done so far.
Yeah.
And I think in terms of features, like our biggest differences, in my opinion, is first the community of, it's not a feature, but it's like the community of curators and professionals that you find on Groover is very different from the one you find on Summit Hub. Some of them are common, but it's maybe 5%,
yeah,
maybe 10% maximum of the creators that are there. But a lot of them are not on Summit Hub. And it's because they're using Groover in a very different way, very organic and sentimental way, very attached to the platform, and using it as their tool for discovery. And especially you talked about like the local thing. About 1,700 creators. We have 300 in France. We have 250 in Brazil. We have close to 200 in Italy. And I know that we have many more in those like 3 countries that Summit Hub has. It's growing a lot in the US, but even in the US, the ones we have on the platform are not the same ones as on Summit Hub for the most part. And it's because of the way we try to reach out to them, because we're very active in trying to reaching out to them, explaining how it works, educating them to how we can be interesting for them as a blog or as a content creator or as a playlist creator. And I think it's one of the biggest differences. The community you'll find is not the same as Summit Hub. So
yeah, honestly, the feedback I've gotten on Groover has been a lot more detailed in general for rejections than compared to Submit Hub or Playlist Push. Like, I would say on average, it's 2 to 3 times longer. And to read a random person's review that I found, so you kind of have, so everyone has an idea. Like, so this person rejected my track. He said, the track's flow reminded me in a way of the most famous Linkin Park tracks. I found it interesting how you managed to implement elements contemporary to our time without losing the Y2K vibe. However, despite that, the final result doesn't really suit my type of curation, and for this reason, this time I want you to track. Thanks for submitting your song. Like, I feel like on SubmitHub, like, and there's exceptions to this. There's people who write fantastic feedback, but I feel like on SubmitHub I would have gotten like, this was a cool track. It reminded me of Linkin Park, but I don't dig it. Like, it would have been like much shorter. And most of the feedback I've gotten on Groover has been, it's been, you know, like 4 or 5 sentences, which is cool.
Yeah, it really depends. Like, to be totally honest, it's some of them are like much shorter. But like, one of the things that I'm sure about is that we monitoring this very closely every day. One of the recent features that wasn't there and is there for like 2 to 3 months is the ability for you to rate the creators, and we get this information, and we act upon that a lot, and we every day analyze this data and try to coach the creators to give better feedback. And it doesn't mean like be more gentle with the artist, which is not a good feedback. Actually. It's more about being more precise about why you're not sharing. And because it can be interesting information for the artist, and try to educate them about the fact that the good feedback has usually what you think about the track, negative, positive, and then what's your decision about it, like do you decide to share or not, and why. And it's not very complicated, but people need also to be educated to do that in the right way, to bring actually artists the right value. And that's why I was saying we focusing a lot on artists, is because this brings value a lot to artists at the same time. So
I like how the first thing you sent me when you invited me as a curator on there was, it was like a PDF document, or maybe it was a website link PDF document, that it was essentially a training guide for curators on how to, like, essentially what are the ground rules, like how do you give artists constructive feedback in a way that is honest and will help them, but won't arbitrarily crush their hopes and dreams. You know, and so like it was actually pretty detailed. Whereas you know, the other platforms, in some cases they have nothing. In some cases there's a little bit. I found your guide on there pretty thorough and valuable.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time, and we built it with a lot of feedback we were getting. And it's actually, we had a shorter version. And it's actually Thiago, who I told you about, who's the ambassador in Brazil, and he worked on a new version. I helped him like tightened up and had it like very like really nice. And I was like, when we read it in the end, we're like, okay, we're very proud of this, because if we have the creators all read it, we know they're gonna take it into account, because it makes so much sense when you read it. That it's gonna help, and I think it's one of the parts that's important. And the other thing I think is about the quality of the feedback you can get and stuff, is that one of the differences that we let the creators answer within 7 days compared to 48 hours.
I love that as a curator. As an artist, I think it's actually kind of good too. I wish SubmitHub would have an option to increase it, because the 48-hour thing on the curator side kind of sucks. Because it's like if you're busy, it's just like they just all expire, you know. And they have weekend modes and stuff. And on the flip side, the 2-week thing in playlist push is kind of long. I feel like 7 days is a nice sweet spot. Although I kind of wish everyone, and you know, feel free to take this feedback or not, should have like maybe each curator can pick what they want. You know? Yeah,
I think it could be an interesting way to see it, and I think the 7 days came from the fact that first we did a lot of interviews, and actually artists were not telling us we expect feedback in 2 days. So I was like, why should we ask from the creators that? And we actually had very few critics about that, like from the artist saying it takes too much time. I'm not even sure it happened even once. And we got like more than 15,000 requests and like things about that. So, and we didn't, like, people were not finding this too long. And one of the things, and the other thing is, maybe you didn't say, but it's a pricing point is a bit more expensive. So with the new currency rate between euro and dollars, it's going to be It's gonna be more interesting for you guys in the US at some point, but we're a bit more expensive, and it was not because we wanted to like get more money or anything. It's that because we thought that it was a better way to bring responsibility to the artists in choosing who they want to get in touch with. Because since they're more expensive, they would be more picky as well on who they want to get in touch with. And it actually proved to be quite useful because with the recommendation algorithm, with the filtering system that's getting improved, we can see like over the month, it's going to be even improved in the coming month. We can see that the targeting is better. Many more curators are receiving tracks that are more relevant regarding what they want to receive actually. And so we try to push that in that direction, which doesn't mean making it more expensive, but I feel that because it's a bit more expensive by contact, it's also bringing more responsibility to choose the right ones.
I don't think you're that much more expensive actually, because
it's like €2 by contact.
It's two euros for most of the curators on there, which is only $2.04. And on Submit Hub,
it's probably gonna be less because I heard a lot about like the fact that it's inverting the currency rate between euro and dollar. So
I mean it has been kind of diving down. I don't know which direction it's diving down, but anyways, you know, on Submit Hub, it's like, I think if you buy credits in bulk, it's 80 cents a credit. So it's like, you know, if you're submitting to a 1 credit playlister, it's way cheaper. But a lot of the curators on there require 2 credits, and so then it's like pretty much the same as Groover. And there's even some that have 3. And I know you guys do have a pro mode or like larger curator thing.
The pros, it's for like 3% of them, so it's very selective for now. But it was a way for us more to bring people we weren't able to bring first, and especially like in French rap, because people. I don't know if you've heard like French rap. It's huge. It's crazy because in France, like the top 50 is only French rap. It's crazy. Rap is probably France is the place where rap is the biggest. It doesn't mean that like the biggest country for rap is France. It's definitely the US, but it means that like in France, it's like the proportion of French rap. Crazy.
I gotta say, out of the French artists I've done consultations with, I think they've all been rappers. But it actually hasn't been that many. It's kind of strange, actually. I think I've only talked to less than 5 people from France, which is strange considering that I feel like I've talked to more people from more obscure countries. I don't want to name any countries, but like France, like, I don't know. I feel like I would have bumped into more people from France than some of these some other countries that I bumped into repeated people on. But maybe what's the population of France? Maybe that's why.
It's 65 million, I think.
Okay.
It's quite big. It's quite big. But the market, like the size, the relative share of like the music market is probably 4 to 5% of the overall market, while like the US is like 50%, I think. Or between 35 to 50. So it's like there's a common measure. But it's still like a big market. There's a very strong local market, and so we have like some creators there that are very big media offers for French rap that we were only able to bring because we were like valuing their time a bit more. So it was one of the reasons why we created that tier. And it's €2 by contact, and we also have that's what I wanted to say. We also have some credit packages, so you can also buy in bulk. I think the very first time I used Groover, before I talked to you, I didn't know that, and I just paid like full price for them, and then. But we have a welcome offer. So when you use it for the first time, if you select more than 15, you have 5%. If you select more than 30, you have 10%. So you have a welcome offer that's very close to what the packages do actually.
Okay, cool.
So it's not like, and then we try to like tell you, hey, you have some packages that you can use. We also like pop up like a message or something. But they're very interesting. Like if it's a platform you want to use multiple times or for multiple artists, like definitely use the packages. You gotta say like 25% on some campaigns, 20%. It's gonna help you get in touch with like 50 more creators, something like this. So
yeah. Really good question from Btox. Can you share any real success stories of artists using Groover? Is there a model where you get your money back if the pitches don't work? I believe the answer to that one is no. I'm just skeptical of these kinds of pitch sites. So I guess, like, can you share any real success stories of artists using Groover? And then we'll talk about the second half after that.
Yeah, of course. We've actually started, which shows also our focus on artists, an artist accelerator program, which is called Groover Obsessions. We've been supporting around 50 artists right now. It's a bit more now. It's close to 60, and it's really like one of the top priorities in terms of how we diversify our activity. And a lot of those artists have some great success. So I'm not going to say like we have like a Billie Eilish thing, because it's not the case, or at least we don't know about it, which is possible. But we really have some artists who have gone from sending a demo or sending a first single and really being able to reach like 50K monthly listeners, 100K monthly listeners, stuff like that. So not only with Groover, but with really Groover helping. So we have a French rapper called Alvin Chris, who's performing really well. There's an artist called Mathieu Saikani in France, saying, we have some examples, a lot of artists who have signed with cool record labels. We have some artists signing with Kitsune, which is one of the very cool band we have here in France, who's like the record label of Parcells, maybe you know that band. And we had some bands signing on the label of Chinese Man Records, some going strong with Electropose, which is one of the biggest chill electronic music channel, more than 1 million followers. So it's more about, we realize that like artist development and development careers are really, it's something that's slow and takes a lot of time and takes a lot of work. You know everything about it. But we're seeing like in 3 years, like some artists going from a point and going into a point where we see, okay, they're on the verge. Like they can definitely, if they take the right decision and they have the right entourage, they're really on the verge of something. And it's something we really interested in.
That's a really good point you said, where like, you know, even the artists that have like all these monthly listeners and stuff that use Groover and maybe had like a huge growth during the period they used it. It's not like, in most cases, any one thing you do isn't going to be the thing that makes you successful. So it's like Groover is almost always likely one part of a larger paid marketing strategy, and
it's a part of the strategy for sure.
And it might, in some cases, it might be insanely important for that strategy. In other cases, it might be small, but that's, you know, a lot of people, I feel like, with anything in music marketing, they like to think they can do just like one thing that's going to turn them into like Billie Eilish or whatever. But it's most likely not the case.
And the way we see it also is, if I can add, like, I'm thinking of one story. There's like a French rapper called BB Jack, so it's Liquid BB Jack or BB Jack, and he's become really strong, and he's been featured on a Netflix TV series called Nouvelle École. It's like a rap school like series and stuff, and he's become huge, and he's around like an older viral 50 and top 50 in France thanks to that. But before that, like all the early work was done through a contest that we organized in Groover with a very famous YouTube influencer there and rapper called it's in French it would be the Dirty Reviewer, and he's doing a lot of like he's very followed by a lot of people for French rap, and he's wearing a mask and stuff. And so we did a contest with this guy, and we decided to support that artist, and we helped him get into like a very cool like freestyle podcast. We filmed a live session with him and another very cool media outlet. We pushed him a lot, and we see that like he's been growing. He's been like scouted by like the Netflix for their TV series, and now he's become really huge. Like, yes, all his tracks have reached like 1 million. They have people who are like binge listening to his music in like in a crazy way, that you can have like a fan trap in some occasions, and we've seen that happening. So Groover is really a part. Like, it's not the reason why you're breaking out, but it's part of it. And the second thing I want to say is that we're seeing so many now very important independent record labels and even major record labels using Groover for their releases.
Yeah.
So, and really cool artists. And we see the artists are like, no, they didn't use Groover. It's not possible. And we see that, and they actually get some great results, and they want to work again with us, and they contact us and see like, how can you help us? And so we see that as like also proof that it's bringing value to artists from a whole different kind of like the levels of development for the artists who are using Groover is so varied, from the artist releasing his first track to a band like I don't know, like, no, we got Ninja Tune, like, you know, Ninja Tune, they're using Groover for their releases now. It's like a very big record label in the UK.
Nice.
It's done electronic music a lot. They have like, they work with Bonobo and people like that, Erykah Badu and stuff. So they're working on stuff like that, and they're insanely like picky and very like it's an amazing brand. Like, a lot of artists would dream to sign with Ninja Tune. Yeah. They're using Groover for as part of their like marketing and promotion campaign, so it's cool.
Yeah, no, that must feel awesome to have like this platform that you built just like a couple of years ago. Now you're having these kind of people that you look up to, and these companies using your platform. Like, that's it must be kind of surreal.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's I think it's complicated to have some like to see it from the outside and realize what's happening, and it's really cool. But it's also because it's not over at all. Like, we have so many things to do. And in a way, like when you manage a YouTube channel and you're able to get in touch with so many people, you have so many people watching your videos and getting back to you. You have like a lot of success with that as well. And I think maybe, I don't know if you realize it as something that's like you're totally aware of, or if it's like something you're into, so you don't realize it. So it's
I know what you mean. It's like I've had people, I'll talk to them and then they'll be like you are the reason why I am where I am, and I'm like, oh well, like, thanks. Like, it's kind of weird to say. I love it when, obviously everyone loves hearing stuff like that, but it is kind of weird. Like, the first few times someone told me that, and I was like, it was just like, I didn't even know what to say. I was like really? Like, my videos made that much of an impact in your life? And it's, then I talked to someone else who, like, their friend like got my course a year ago or so, and he went from almost 0 to like a couple 100,000 monthly listeners, and he was saying how he attributes like your course is what helped make him have that happen, and I was just like what? Like, it's always it's just nuts when you see the thing that you made kind of like make a positive impact, because it's like to you, you're just in the moment working on it, and you see like the little stepping stones that you're helping people make. Like, oh cool, like we helped this artist hit 10,000 monthly listeners for the first time, or we helped them hit 1,000 followers. What you don't see, or you might not notice, is like maybe that person used your stuff like a year ago, and then they used it every month leading up to now, and so they might have literally come from 0 to like some big number over that time, and it's kind of weird. Like, you kind of lose the forest for the trees, kind of, so to speak.
Yeah, and there's some highlights and some high points. I told you about like Alvin Chris. He's singing in French, so it's like he's a rapper and bit like around pop, and has so much charisma, and like he's become a friend like over the years, and he's been using Groover a lot, and so we booked him, like we were able to have him booked on Mama Festival, which is kind of a small South by festival. It's the closest equivalent to South by in France, and on a big stage. and I invited him on the conference we were giving about Proof Obsessions and what we wanted to do there. And we were just the two of us on the stage, and he told, I didn't know what he was going to say, but he talked about his experience of Groover, and he started, I was like, what he's saying, and I was like, at first he was like, yeah, I used Groover at first, and I sent my first tracks, and I got so many, like, I got bashed a lot, and I got like telling me that the mix is not at the level, that it was not like original enough and stuff like that. And he ended up saying, and it was probably like very true. Like it was true, and because he was rapping, but he was also producing his own productions. He realized that he was better at like embodying it and rapping than producing, that he should probably work with some other beat makers and producers. And so he started like collaborating with some other people, and he actually got a big brag on TikTok at some point with one of his tracks and another one, and then he signed with a big distributor and still working a bit with us, and booked on festivals and doing some very big openings and stuff, and really grew from there. And he said like his first like feedback I got, and then the first people who actually liked my new music were from Groover, and I still use it a lot, and it's helping me. And so it was like very emotional, like, and at the same time it was like, this is exactly the path that we're trying to build, like for artists that are ready to take the most out of it, because it can be very tough sometimes, like to get some negative feedback on music, and we get some artists who are like really pissed and stuff. And
what's your average acceptance rate across the whole platform?
It's quite high, actually. It's we say 20%, but it's closer to 25%.
That is high. A lot of people don't realize that. Like I've talked to people where they're like, I submitted to like 20 different curators on Submit Hub or whatever, and I only get accepted to 2, and or like 2 or 3. And I'm like, honestly, like that's good. 10% is solid, and 25 is really high. I wonder if yours is higher because like you have the localization stuff, so those artists are gonna like there's less competition for them, so that brings up the average. And then maybe since you guys haven't, like, you're still expanding into some markets, there's less competition, maybe?
I think there's a lot of factors. There's the fact that some of the creators that we have are really determined, and especially this localization thing helps a lot. Like we see it in Brazil, for instance, they have high acceptance rate, especially when they receive Brazilian music, but they also like music from elsewhere. Like they like Brazilian, they love music. It's like crazy. They can accept tracks in Italian, French, and push them like hell. So it's interesting. And at the same time, I think it's also because we're a bit more expensive, we're a bit smaller. We work a lot on that kind of attribution of helping the artists choose the creators they want to get in touch with. So there's not as much saturation. I think the creators are receiving fewer tracks, so they're more eager to dedicate more time to each one. And also we focusing a lot on the quality, like the way we acquire users, we acquire artists, and we focus on talking to artists so they can join the platform.
Yeah,
probably brings artists who are maybe right now, for a part of them, maybe a bit more quite high quality on average. That's some of the ones that maybe submitted Summit Hub, or maybe it's also because on Summit Hub you have so many tracks. Like you see so many tracks as a creator, at some point it becomes like some kind of like factory of feedback. It's really what you don't want to end up being.
I just checked my own Groover stats for my artist account, and in total I've sent 68, or I've gotten 68 responses, and I've had 16 shares and 1 promise to share. So 17 out of 68, which if I do the math, that's
really strong.
That comes to 25%, which is exactly your platform average.
But it's really strong. Like it's close to like 20%. Like it's very direct. Like we have some that are like 2%.
Right.
It's like it's some who are like accepted by everybody. And it's like it's really like the elasticity of this is very, very, very big.
Yeah, the one thing I've told a couple people when they ask me, because I talk a ton about Facebook ads and stuff. But when people ask me what tools do they use for playlisting, I'll say try Submit Hub, Groover, Playlist Push. But what I tell some people is, like, instead of going all in with your credits on a certain platform, especially for your first time, like, you'll find that each platform kind of suits a slightly different demographic and genre or whatever. And so one song might do better on Playlist Push than it would do on you guys or Submit Hub. And, like, for example, my alternative metal project, I submitted like to 20, 30 curators on Submit Hub, 0%. And the problem was, actually, I don't think we could do 20 or 30. I don't think there was enough in the genre to even select any relevant curators. But we got a 0% acceptance rate, and there weren't many options. I wouldn't dare take it to Playlist Push. Like, Playlist Push in general, I made a video on it comparing them to Submit Hub, and the conclusion was don't use them, just purely because of how expensive it is per pitch compared to both of you guys. But in that video is just comparing to Submit Hub, but it's still way more expensive than you guys. And so I would recommend people, if they have a budget they want to spend on curation, probably spend a little bit on several platforms. You can't really do that with Playlist Push. But then see what feedback you get from each platform. And you might find that Submit Hub doesn't work for your genre, where it works on Groover. And I've noticed that on the curator side, the types of music I get as a curator on Groover are completely different than the types of music I get on Submit Hub, which is kind of strange, but, you know, for whatever reason, it seems like certain types of people have flocked to you than the ones who have flocked to them.
That's really a big thing. It's that's what I was saying about the difference in the communities of creators on both platforms. And it's because also we put some focus on some specific genres and some specific countries. We try to be have people from everywhere and every genre. But we have like naturally some places in which we are stronger than others. And as I told you, I had like an indie rock blog, and also Jason also had like some kind of like indie music blog. So even on Groover, like when you do indie pop, you gotta find a lot of contacts, like for sure, more than like on other verticals. And at first like in France, everybody was telling us, why don't we have like some rap indie artists? And then we cracked it, like we cracked this, like the French rap bubble. And for example, for hip hop in English, 6 months ago we didn't have like a lot of them, like just a few. Now we have more. Like we don't have like as many as I would want to, but we didn't have a lot before, and we had to work a lot to bring more. So it's really interesting on that to see how different like the populations can be there and difference in results you can get. And for Playlist Push, I agree with you, but I also used it, and I think I had like different kind of results. And what I noticed is that it actually works really well when you have a particular track that already works great with some Spotify playlist creators. So if you get some great results, for instance, on Submit Hub or Groover, and you have some budget, it might be a good idea to do a placement campaign, because you will have like a better acceptance rate because it means that kind of like your track is strong with voice creators in general in a way, and it can bring you like a big push. But I wouldn't use it at first. Like I wouldn't use it at first when you're beginning like your audience building and you're trying to reach out to the first people that might like your music. I would better use it if you have a track that's very strong, that's getting a lot of very, very positive response, and you feel that it can act as a very big boost. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think another application of it is labels that they don't care about the difference in spending like $2 a submission or $5 a submission, because for them it's like, who cares anyways. I mean, you know, obviously they care about the money, but like they might be spending $15,000 in a music video. So for them to spend 200 versus 700, it's kind of like whatever, especially when it saves time.
exactly.
So I think like that's where playlist push is kind of a no-brainer for that, because it saves so much time. You just pick a genre or enter in some artists, and it's like boom, done. And that's where that Groover define your budget thing is nice too, because you can shave off some time for the label.
Spend more time, yeah.
Because if the label is paying their employee, let's say like I don't know, $30 an hour, but then with healthcare and benefits, they're paying $60 an hour to keep that employee there or whatever. It's like, do you want to have them spend an hour messing around with buttons on a website, or just like pay the money, save more money to save them time and go have them make money, But
yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah.
Carlos in the chat said Groover seems better for metal, which is I'll have to try it.
It's fun because actually, I think it comes from a different for different reasons. So I don't know metal really well. Like I've always been like a rock music fan, but more on the soft part of it. Like I like hard rock in a way, but and then a lot of bands from like the 80s and 90s. But I didn't know a lot about metal. And so we realized that because we had a lot of feedback from people in France telling us about how it's important to have a dedicated metal genre and different subgenres in that. And when we started doing that, and we started to reach out to people in France in the metal music scene, started something. We had also contests at some point just before COVID, so the festival didn't happen, but it was called the Metalhead Convention. It was going to be huge in France. And we had a partnership with them and trying to have people apply. It didn't happen in the end because of COVID, so it was canceled. But it was a way to like initiate a way of like being like with metal music. And then we have Luis, who's working as an ambassador for Spain and Latin America, and he's like a hard rock and metal person and musician, and he brought a lot of creators from that scene in those countries, and I think it triggered something that makes rock music and metal music very welcome on Groover. All music is welcome, but it's more like you can get cool results from some creators there that are dedicated to those music genres.
Betox, is it better to send a single before it goes live on Spotify or after, once it's gained some streams, thus plays? My opinion on it, well, it depends if you're doing Facebook ads or not. Often I'll tell people if they're doing like a big Facebook ad campaign to do that on release day and stagger your playlisting a little bit after, so that like you can quantify what your ads are doing. And then once you add the playlisting, you have a baseline for your ad, so now you know what the playlisting's doing. So, because otherwise you have to figure out the data. It's kind of a hot mess. But I would say, aside from that, because you can submit tracks before they're released on Groover, right?
Yeah, it's a very interesting and important question. I have an answer, and I don't know if it's the right one, but it's been the one that's been working for us since the beginning. So we have an article on our FAQ about it that I wrote personally. But it depends on the types of people you're reaching out to. For Spotify playlists, we advise that you send it on release day or after, because they will have access that way to the Spotify link to your track. While before that they don't have it, and sometimes it's an argument for them to reject the track. Because they're like, the link is not available yet. I don't know if I'm gonna log in the like the next week or so. So since it's not on Spotify, I'm gonna reject it. And a lot of like the place creators actually tell us, I don't want to receive tracks that are not released on Spotify yet. It's an important part because I understand that point of view on that side, and at the same time it's risky because if you send in a release day, you're not going to get it on a place in the first days. But it's not a big problem because we realize that actually you're usually able to trigger the algorithmic playlist when you're consistent in your first weeks of streams. It's not like you have a peak and then it goes down. It's more about if you get into a playlist 7 days after your release, 2 weeks after you release, 1 month after you release, and it's always bringing your curve a bit up, it's always a good sign, like for the algorithm. And sometimes we see some tracks getting into like Discover Weekly 1 month, 2 months, 3 months after release because they're having a peak at that point. So we more on I would advise more for that, especially for Spotify playlists. Then if you get in touch with blogs or radios, you can send them before. And same goes for record labels, of course. You need, if you want to get a record label, you need to send it to them much earlier. But into like your current work and say, I'm working on something else, just like initiate the conversation as well. But it really depends on the people you get in touch with. But for Spotify playlists, I would advise on release day. Because of the way they treat their submissions, which is less like a blog where you need time to prepare, review something. Like a place creator, you accept it, you add it to your playlist, and like it takes a few seconds. So it's more about that.